In the new year 2023, National Statistical Office NSO has come with a buoyant estimation on the part of GDP growth for the year 2022-23, stating that India's economy will grow by 7% in the current fiscal 23. Though it is higher than the estimates by various agencies such as the IMF, RBI, and SBI, which have in fact estimated the GDP growth of India for 2022-23 as about 6.8%. So when compared to the estimates of RBI, IMF, SBI, though the estimate of NSO is a tad above 20 basis points and made it as a round figure of 7% in terms of GDP growth rate expectations, but it is lower than the 2021-22 GDP growth rate of 8.7%, which India could see and deliver. Though these are early projections for 2020-23, in fact, improved data coverage, actual tax collections, and expenditure incurred on subsidies, data revisions made by the sourcing agencies, etc., would also have a bearing on subsequent revision of these estimates. Further, these estimates are also likely to undergo revisions when the second advance estimate is going to be announced around Feb 28th. If we look at the constituents of the GDP and analyze in which constituent part of GDP the growth is most likely to happen and in which constituent part of GDP the growth rate is going to decline for the year 2022-23, then we can find that agriculture is expected to grow by 0.5% to 3.5% when compared to the 3% growth that India has seen in 2021-22. In 2022-23, we are expected to have a growth rate of 3.5% in agriculture. Whereas the most disgusting part of the growth rates is the industry is degrowing when compared to the growth rate of previous year substantially. In terms of growth rate percentages, if we see, the industry is going to degrow to a growth rate of about 4.1% in 2020-23, whereas it showed a growth of almost 10.3% in 2021-22. And if we see the third constituent part of GDP, the services are expected to grow to the extent of around 9.1% from 8.4% in 2021-22. So overall, when we combine the degrowth of the industry and the growth that is coming from services and the growth coming from agriculture, then we can find that the overall GDP of India is expected to grow to the extent of around 7% when compared to 8.7% of previous year, that is 2021-22. Though agriculture and services showed improved performance, industry led by manufacturing has disappointed. The nominal GDP growth rate, taking inflation into consideration, has been estimated at 15.4% as against 11.1% projected in the budget. This is expected to present the fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP at or lower than the budget estimate of 6.4%. By looking at the NSO estimates, what we can say and analyze is that The road ahead for Indian economy is not going to be easy so long as the private financial consumption expenditure does not recover fully. The household sector, which accounts for 44 to 45% of our gross value added, saw its nominal wage growth decline to 5.7% during FY17 FY21 from 8.2% in FY12 FY16. Since much of the growth in consumption demand is driven by wage growth of the household sector, a recovery is imperative for sustainable economic growth. And also, the main challenge for the government will be a durable pickup in private investment amid rising borrowing costs, demand uncertainty, and global slowdown. Though, all in all, the estimated growth of 7% for 2022-23 looks good as of today, but going forward, given the global recession, though within that recession, India may do well, but India's overall growth rate may still be anywhere between 6 to 7% in 2023-24. The expectation of GDP for 2023-24 as anywhere between 6 to 7% is based on the view that growth expectations have fluctuated throughout the year in the past, as have growth rates skewed by pandemic base effects. Real GDP grew 4.1% in the January to March quarter, followed by 13.5% in April to June, before halving to 6.3 between July and September. So the kind of fluctuations through which the Indian GDP has gone through, based on that, I feel that a conservative estimate of anywhere between 6 to 7% for 2023 and 24 seems to be very realistic. Amid all kinds of estimates for the GDP growth by various agencies, one positive thing about the Indian economy is the Indian economy has displayed a broad resilience amid strong external headwinds, thanks to a consistently growing farm sector and consumers catching up on pent up demand for contract intensive services that have now recovered to pre COVID levels. Though the World Bank has estimated India's growth of GDP for 2020-23 at about 6.9%. By all accounts, growth is expected to be slower in the coming year 2023-24, and that growth rate can be anywhere between 6 to 7%. Further, this realistic growth rate expectation for 2023-24 is based on the feeling that most developed nations are expected to enter a recession, which will dent demand for India's exports. With the Ukraine conflict far from over and fresh fears of new COVID 19 variant spreading its wings, little hope of an immediate pause in global monetary tightening and RBI's warning of the next financial crisis emerging from private cryptocurrencies, the risks ahead remain as heady as they were last year. Thank you very much.